see you. Hello there.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Nice to see you.
Randy, pleased to meet
Good
you.
to see you. How you doing?
Good.
Tim
Nice to
Ryan?
meet you, Kenny.
Kenny, good to see you. Hey, Rich, Tim Sawyer? Is that what you said, Sawyer? Yeah.
Janet, I understand you're from my neck of the woods. I grew up in Cuyahoga Falls.
Oh, yeah, that's my district.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Sharon. Tim. Chairman?
This is where the Obama photos are taken.
All right. We'll have to get a couple.
I'll have to shoot you.
Yeah, yeah. How you doing?
Oh, fine.
Tim, Ryan?
Pat, so bad.
Nice to see you.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, temporary people there.
Yeah,
They're not
right.
bad.
That's right.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Austin.
Hey, Austin, Tim, Ryan, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Can I sit in the middle here? Then word?
You wanted a kind of introduction, I've been given a sheet on it, but you know you better than I know you.
Go ahead, let's see what you got to say. I'll tell you if it's true or not.
Well, Congressman Tim Ryan, member of the House, serving your 9th term,
Yes.
which for your age is kind of extraordinary. It's a long time to be in Congress.
Yeah, it's like dog years.
Yeah, it's usually dog years.
7 for every one, you know?
You represent part of Northeast Ohio, it says. I know you challenged Nancy Pelosi for the leadership of the House at one point, a surrogate for Hillary Clinton, who was in this very room a couple of years ago.
On more than one occasion.
Yeah, more than one occasion in this very room. So, it says here you've published a couple of books, which I wasn't aware of, Mindful Nation and Real Food Revolution. And you got a law degree. You're a lawyer. There's two lawyers in this room. And law degree from University of New Hampshire, bachelor's from Bowling Green, and born in '73 in Niles, Ohio. And you live in Howland, Ohio. That's how you understand you got a wife and 3 kids.
I do. 2 dogs.
Mr. Ryan. Congressman.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out on that beautiful Saturday afternoon. You probably had other things to do. I appreciate you coming out here. We're excited. We've got the Hall of Fame dinner tomorrow in Cedar Rapids, which we're going to have 5 minutes with 19 other candidates. But we're excited about the campaign at this point. So the chairman said I'm from an area of the country, area of Ohio. It's like in the northeast section. So I live halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So the big thing is to figure out if you're a Cleveland Browns fan or a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And we have a mixed family. I'm a Browns fan. My oldest son is a Steelers fan.
Now I don't have to like turn you away immediately.
Yeah. And so really it's kind of the epicenter of deindustrialization. We had, old steel. My father-in-law worked at a steel mill in the late 70s, lost his job for 13 months, had to go move houses and sell insurance just to kind of make ends meet right after my wife was born. So she had 2 kids. And I think 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, a cousin of mine was working at Delphi. Delphi supplied the local General Motors factory with wiring harnesses, and my cousin was winding things up, and he called me and he said, "You never guess what I can do today." He was an old Vietnam guy, blue jeans and a shirt, and talking about Vietnam, but he said, "I had to unbolt the machine from the factory floor, and I put it in a box, and I'd ship it to China. And then other people would do that in Mexico, and then they would have to go, like some of the people would actually have to go to Mexico and train the people that were going to take their jobs." And that's kind of how we grew up watching this unfold. And then a few months ago, we lost our General Motors factory. It used to be 16,000 workers, and now it's 0. It was 4,000 2 years ago, and lost the 3rd shift, lost the 2nd shift, just lost the 1st shift. And the reason I tell you that is because that's how we grew up. I mean, we grew up watching this unraveling of the manufacturing economy and remember who we were. I mean, we were kind of cut loose, and globalization and times have changed, and you got to figure it out and all that. And now we have an opiate crisis. We have an infant mortality crisis, where African American baby in Youngstown has a higher infant mortality rate than a baby born in Iran. I mean, it's just gotten progressively worse. Healthcare, pensions, all of these issues that are like plaguing people really across the country. And the reason I'm running is I think the next president needs to really understand what people are going through. the president saying the economy's booming, the stock market's up, unemployment's down, people are, it's the best economy ever. Like, we're not seeing it. I don't think people are experiencing the benefits of, what we could be doing. And so, understanding where people are, I've been studying and bringing money back to my community to try to shift the economy. Basically decide, okay, what are the most innovative things happening in the economy? Where are the areas of the economy that are growing? And what are the innovative education programs? And what are the innovative things happening around the country? And how do we scale those up? So 2 or 3 things I do, and then we can open it up for questions, but I just want to kind of lay it out where the growth is. So one example is electric vehicles. So in the next 10 years, there's going to be 30 million electric vehicles built somewhere in the world. We should have a plan on how American workers make those. We don't right now. I know the president doesn't. We should figure out how we make the batteries. We should figure out how we make the charging stations. 30 million cars. The charging station piece of the electric vehicle market is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And right now, China controls 40 to 50% of the electric vehicle market. We should be doing the same thing with solar. How do we figure out how do we dominate the solar market? Right now, China controls 60% of the solar market. Same thing with wind. Same thing with artificial intelligence. Same thing with additive manufacturing. One of the things people, I get scared reading all this stuff about artificial intelligence and machine learning and driverless cars and like all this stuff that's coming down the pike. And you get scared because you're like, well, what are people going to do? And what we did in the 70s in Youngstown, during this peak of the steel, and then towards the end of the steel industry booming in the United States, the technology in the steel mill in the late 70s was pre-World War I technology. And we got our clock cleaned. We just buried our head in the sand, hoped that we could just keep rolling, and we didn't embrace the changes that were happening. And I think we're at that same inflection point now where you could either be scared, which we all are, but or we can overcome the fear and grab this technology and figure out how to dominate it and make it work for our workers and then increase productivity and cut workers in on the deal. And to me, that's how we move forward. If they're going to build 30 million new electric vehicles somewhere, we should have a policy on where we're going to make them here in the United States. The president doesn't have that policy. He wants to look tough on China by the tariffs and everything else, but the reality is we have no long-term plan on how we're going to get China, beat China, out-compete China, and we need to put a plan together. The 2 other things I'll just talk about real quick around education and healthcare. One of them, healthcare, I've been on the single payer bill since 2007. To me, it's important that we move down the line to universal coverage. I think we can start with a public option where people can buy in to get affordable, accessible coverage in the United States. If you can't afford it, we should help you pay for it. It's going to be best for everybody. We've got to rein in the pharmaceutical industry. I was at my mom's house on Mother's Day. She's a little Italian lady, and she had her finger in my face. And she said, when you get in there, you better take care of these pharmaceutical prices. And I said, well, what's wrong? She worked for the county. I thought she had a pretty good retirement package. And they had renegotiated and they lost some benefits. So she fell into the donut hole, which is in Medicare. You would get coverage up to a certain amount, and then you go into the donut hole where they don't cover anything for your prescription drugs. And then if it gets to a super high level, they'll pick it back up. So she fell in the donut hole, and she's paying $1,000 a month. And this is the congressman's mom who worked for the county, who supposedly would have a decent retirement package. She only makes $3,500 a month for her retirement. So we've got to figure out how to get the pharmaceutical companies under control. I think we got to let these prescription drugs in from Canada, which will increase the competition, lower the price, and also let the Medicare program negotiate down the drug prices. Like, there's so much buying power that the Medicare program has, but they're not allowed to, by law, not allowed to negotiate down the drug prices, which doesn't make any sense at all. There also needs to be another conversation around healthcare. 75% of healthcare costs in the United States are chronic diseases that are largely preventable. So diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, a lot of the mental health issues. A lot of these are literally reversible if we focus on health, we focus on food. And so one of the things I'd love to do is flip the system and start working on prevention and providing incentives for doctors to keep us healthy, and also give patients rebates and refunds for staying healthy and being healthy, and get paid and pay less out of pocket than you have to if you're staying healthy. So one of the examples is diabetes. So right now, about half of the adult population in the country has either diabetes or pre-diabetes. And the diabetic costs the healthcare system 2.3 times as much as a non-diabetic. And that's going to absolutely sink the healthcare system. It's about $14,000 a year, which is about, the average person would be about $650,000 in their lifetime. And what they're discovering now is with a $10,000 investment of diet, nutrition, teaching people how to cook, telling them what foods they can eat, they're literally reversing diabetes, type 2 diabetes, literally reversing it for $5,000 or $10,000. But we don't cover that. We cover the $14,000 a year forever, but we won't pay for $10,000 on the upfront side to actually get people healthy. We can save trillions of dollars over the course of the life of, the next few decades if we flip the system. I also think we've got to look at new ways of growing our food and move to more regenerative agriculture, which there's a lot of farmers out there making a lot of money off of regenerative agriculture. We've destroyed the soil in the country. It's a big problem right now that we're seeing with all the runoff, with all of the flooding and everything. The soil is flat. With the overuse of pesticides and those kind of things is doing a lot of damage that's going into the Gulf of Mexico. We actually lose about 220 cubic tons of fish every year in the Gulf of Mexico just from the runoff that goes down.
Dead zone.
Dead zone in the mouth of the Mississippi. So that's another thing that we have to do quickly on education. I think we need to do three things. We've got to understand that a lot of these kids are coming into the schools with trauma. And when you're in trauma, you literally can't learn. Your brain's not functioning properly. I want to put an initiative together around trauma-based care for our kids, which is around social and emotional learning, where you're actually giving the kids the ability to deal with the trauma, to self-regulate, to become self-aware, to understand what's going on. And it's been amazing. It's an amazing program. You help the kids connect to each other. You help them connect to their teachers. You teach them how to resolve conflict, work in teams, better address their relationship issues, which is very healthy for kids. Anyway, long story short, when you implement a robust social and emotional learning program, there's an 11 percentile point increase in test scores, which actually closes the achievement gap. There's a 10% increase in good behavior, 10% decrease in antisocial behavior, which is a 20% swing in the mood of the schools. And so it works because you're addressing some of the fundamental problems, challenges that the kids have based on them having some trauma. I also think we need to get healthy food in the school. And we've got to go back to vocational training in the schools and home economics in the schools. Like, get back to the fundamentals. So what you can see in the entire agenda is like, how do we get back to the fundamentals? Build stuff, grow stuff, and take care of our kids. It's like pretty simple. Not, sharpest knife in the drawer, but I figured this out. That this is how you transform your country. And I think lastly, I'll just say this: these positive things are happening all around the country. I mean, they're happening now in schools, on farms, in healthcare facilities, where you're reversing diabetes, you're healing kids' trauma, you're building, new industries where people are making a lot of money. I was in an electrical company, Paulson Electric. I think it was in, I don't know where it was.
Cedar Rapids.
Is it Cedar Rapids? Yeah.
Or the one of the towns outside.
It was in Cedar Rapids, yeah.
Marion.
Yeah.
Marion. There you go, one of them.
I think it was Cedar Rapids.
Marion.
We went and visited. They're putting in solar panels.
Yes.
Their IBW, Electrical Worker Union, those guys are making $50 an hour putting in solar panels. It's about a third of their business right now. And so if we nationally like scale this stuff up and move in this direction, cut these workers in on the deal, this is ready to go. I mean, this is not something that we got.
You haven't read the news, those wind turbines cause
I
cancer.
saw.
You must have missed that in the news.
I'm gonna have to reevaluate it.
You got a whole cancer zone right up here now.
The smartest man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Congressman, I'm sorry.
No, that's it, I'm done.
That's just
I'm
how
done.
stupid,
Just ask him, he's a genius.
that's just how stupid we're dealing with right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
When you're sounding very practical, and this is the stupidity we're.
Yeah, so I guess I should just say, no, we'll open up for questions. I'm done.
One of the things, what you're mentioning, the president just talked about scaling back the renewable, the fuel standards for new automobiles. It just
Yeah.
seems counterproductive from what
Yeah.
they're talking about.
It is.
We should be looking at things that don't pollute and cutting edge things instead of saying,
Right.
oh, go ahead and keep producing vehicles that pollute.
Look, I mean,
I'm not going to sound very Iowan here because, I don't think that 10 or 15% ethanol grown on farms with lots of inputs is actually the way to solve the system. But that doesn't mean I think we should go to, back to
Right.
all gasoline. It's just that we should be getting off that kind of vehicle
And let's
altogether.
spend time with the, and you've been around Iowa, so you've seen all the wind energy being produced in
Yeah.
Iowa. and-
But it's a political, the subsidy is frankly a political game. You come to Iowa, all of your candidates say you're going to support it because, you have to get attention in Iowa. And I think Iowa is too addicted to ethanol for fuel instead of growing food.
Yeah.
I have.
However, ethanol was not meant to be the end all.
No.
It's to transition us, I'm a farmer too. And I happen to agree with you, but the ethanol thing was not the end all. That's to transition us so we can get to our electric car.
Right.
And there's this period when we're going off coal and others, 3, 4, 5, 10 years where we needed the ethanol to get where the congressman wants to take us.
Plus they want to sell corn.
So it's to me, a win-win rather than a negative. So I just see that as a temporary thing
I do too.
on the ethanol.
More whiskey, less gas.
Go ahead. Take us there.
I have a couple questions.
No, that was.
One, you brought up renewable energy, and right now Iowa is in the midst of a battle with Alliant Energy, the sole producer of electric power in Iowa. One of my concerns is we have all these wind farms in Iowa, but Alliant has control over when they buy power from those and when they don't. If they don't feel like buying power from your wind farm, they won't. They'll shut your windmills off. What can you do? What will you do to make that stop? If we're talking renewable energy, how do we make companies like Alliant Energy, who would have a monopoly in a state like Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois, buy the renewable power that we're providing to them?
yeah, I don't know if you have to do some federal regulation. The problem is in Des Moines, right? I mean, with the State House, isn't that?
But no, it's
The
utility
state,
board.
the state,
State
yeah, right.
utility.
Yeah, state utility board.
Yeah, which is controlled basically by the companies,
Yeah,
it sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the federal role would be in that. I think creating an environment where these alternatives are catching on, and there's a lot of political pressure to do it because of the benefits, even though it may not benefit the company necessarily, or lose some control. The company may lose some control. I don't know, we'll have to talk about how to do that. I can't give you a good answer right now.
My other question is, you're talking about, incentives and stuff for like the electric cars and renewable transportation sources, I guess. What about other renewable sources such as my industry, for example? I'm in the scrap metal business. We recycle iron to produce new iron. What is your stance on incentives for industries like that are trying to make a difference in the environment by doing their part and reducing the waste that lands in our landfills?
Yeah.
Versus mining for new ores
Yeah.
to produce new steel.
Yeah. So I think that those companies who are having some social good, which that would definitely be qualified for, should get tax preference. So instead of doing what we did with the tax cut, which was $1.5 trillion By the time we pay it back, it'll be like $2.3 trillion. So instead of just, and that primarily went to the top 1% of people in the country, and they got no social value out of the whole thing. I would rather use that tax incentive for companies like the ones you're talking about. And basically what I'd like to do is move us from rewarding what today is like a shareholder-based economy, where the shareholders are prime, they're the prime actor, right? To a stakeholder-based economy, where the workers, the community, the supply chain, the economic and environmental good that companies have will pay a lower rate than other companies who aren't. And so you start building in incentives to transfer our industries into a direction. I mean, businesses were meant to fill a void and to do some social good, not just clearly make money. So sounds like your company would qualify for that.
So you're talking about education in terms basically of K through 12. What are your thoughts about higher education, whether community colleges or your,
Yeah.
how to help the student? I teach at a small college.
Yeah. So we are paying my wife's student loan off right now as we speak.
Yeah.
And so we understand it's a terrible system. So two things. One is how can we have people who already have taken out loans to be able to renegotiate them at a lower rate. I think that's clearly doable, and you can allow the people who've taken out the loan either start paying down more of the principal or have more money in their pocket. And then we've got to start looking at education a little bit differently. And the reason for that is the economy has changed. So before it was K through 12 was free. I mean, everybody went K through 12 because that was what the economy was, manufacturing based. Some people would do well, most people went off to the factory. But it was all free. Now the economy has changed, so we've got to extend that to K through 16. And without any economic barriers, so you can go cost-free to a 2-year degree, certifications, and a 4-year degree if that's what you want. But that's how you get ready. So you're building wind, building solar, building electric vehicles, doing artificial intelligence, doing additive. You've got to have the pipeline of people coming in through. It's also why I want to focus on vocational education. So as you're going through high school, you're starting to build yourself towards some kind of skill set that will allow you to participate. Now, we have a program in Ohio that's super cool. You can get 13 hours for a welding degree. 13 hours towards a welding certificate of 33 hours in Ohio you need. So by the time you graduate from high school, you can have 13 hours already towards the 33, and that way you're on a track to get some kind of certification, which is what most people are going to need. I mean, I think the idea that everybody has to go to college has been one of the great lies in American history, and it's really distorted the entire system.
I don't personally have one, but my wife and my daughter both have vaginas. And I respect that. And there's a war on women. There's a war on people who have those. And I'm tired of it because I respect them and I want them to do well. I haven't heard you talk about it. And we have hospitals here in Iowa who give great service until your daughter goes and asks for an IUD. And they say no, because some 2,000-year-old, even the ancients weren't foolish enough to believe in parthenogenesis. Athena never had any kids by herself. And so here we are in the 21st century, a hospital that gets federal funds that says, no, we can't help my daughter. I mean, that's a scandal. That tax money goes to places like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a war on women.
Yeah,
Can you address that?
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I could bring up a million topics, so I didn't bring it up because I want to leave open for questions, and I usually get that question. So, yeah, there's a total war on women, and it's being run by old white men in positions of power, primarily in the states that we see in Georgia, in Missouri, in Ohio. In Ohio, we have one of the worst records for women's health coming out of it's been a legislature and a governor's mansion controlled by Republicans since 2010.
You didn't mention that birth rate, that mortality rate. in
Yeah,
the region.
yeah, so I mean, you know, it's a woman's health issue, and it needs to be determined by the woman and her doctor, period, end of story. And if these Republicans who are so concerned with reducing abortions, you know, a large portion of those come from unintended pregnancies, to your point about the birth control. So we should, but they won't be for birth control either, which is, and once the baby's born, they're not going to be for the, you know, the baby either, or the, you know, child, in all the things you talked about, early childhood education, social emotional learning, vocational. You ask them to fund that stuff, and they're nowhere to be found. You know, it's like they do these heartbeat bills, right? I'm like, how about when the student has a heartbeat? Don't you think they should get a good education? Or when the senior citizen has a heartbeat, don't you think
They're
they should?
facing a pistol or a machine gun in school.
Yeah, right.
Now, how do you, let's say you get the nomination. How
I
do
like
you-
your optimism.
I would ask this.
You're on message.
But, you know, we've brought this issue up now. There's a lot of women still voting Republican. Beyond my understanding that very many of them do.
Yeah.
How do you get them to vote for you? How do you convince them that what their party is selling them is a war on them? They don't see it.
Well, they clearly aren't voting on the issue of women's choice, right? So that would be clear. I think the next election against Trump is, we've got to have a very robust economic message. And women vote their pocketbook too, just like men do. And we've got to have a plan. There are a lot of women out there who are struggling. They're single moms, they're working 2 jobs, they're, you know, working hard, doing everything right, and they're not seeing the benefits of this economy. And I think if a guy like me can go after Trump, because he lied to my people, he came to Ohio, he was in my area, and he's going to have to win Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. And I'm going to be all over him on the...
They don't seem to be wavering very much.
No, I don't know. You see, there was a bunch of polls out the other day. He's underwater in Michigan. He's underwater in Wisconsin. He's at 50% negative in Ohio. I saw the Iowa. You see, the Iowa poll had him. I think it was a Vox article. In Iowa, his negatives were like 54, 55. I mean, they were pretty significant for Iowa, given what happened in the governor's race and everything else. So I think this economic message is the message. What's the future economy going to be in the United States? I mean, you want to go back, he kept campaigning on, we're going to open up the steel mills and open up the coal mines. He came to Youngstown and talked about, don't sell your house. So a person like me who can go and say, look, this is about getting your wages up. This is about rebuilding the middle class in the United States. And this cut taxes for the top 1%, how's this been working out for us? Like, they've dismantled the collective action of government around healthcare, around education, around after-school programs and summer school programs, and, you know, art and music and food and this and that. I mean, it's just been a dismantling of the New Deal. And how's this working out for us? I think that was, I love Hillary, but I think that was her mistake. Like, and Trump's walking into the same trap. And the trap was, like, things are going great. This was the Democratic message. Like, things are going great, let's keep it going. Things are going great, let's keep it going. All right, economy's going great, let's keep it going. 8 years of growth, let's keep it going. Reality, people were like, it ain't going great for me. Right, just not. And Trump is coming in saying, he passed NAFTA, and her husband passed the trade deals, and I'm going to be the economic guy, and I'm going to take care of you, and bring these steel mills back, and all that stuff. And people were like, both parties have failed to address our needs for my family and my community. And so we're going to take a flyer on this guy and see if he does it. Now, he's holding on to his red hatters, and they're always going to be with him, but I think there are a lot of people that are starting to move on that. And if we go in, and I think Trump's saying the economy's booming. You know, it's going great. So all of a sudden, a guy like me who represents a General Motors factory that used to be 4,000 and now is zip. It used to be 16,000. It was 4,000 when Trump got sworn in office. Now it's zero. Like the Foxconn deal in Wisconsin. Remember with Paul Ryan and the governor out there, Walker. It's going to be this $1 billion deal and thousands of jobs. Belly up. Carrier. dog and pony show right
And
after
then
the election.
Wisconsin shucked out $3 billion to get them there?
Yeah, yeah.
Something.
Yeah, it was like $1 million a job or something like that. It
Yeah,
was
it was
insane.
ridiculous.
And then they lost the Harley Davidson facility. They closed down with all the trade stuff happening. So that's what I'm saying. Go at the economy. Hit this guy on the economy. He has no vision for the future. He's got no plans. He's trying to be tough on China, but the reality of it is they're killing us with electric vehicles. They're dominating solar. They're killing us on 5G, the fifth generation internet. Like, I'll be all over this guy. Where are you going? He's going nowhere.
Well, isn't that a key point? This silly trade war dispute with China, a rising power with huge market. I was reading the other day, someone made a pretty darn good point that our market capitalism does not, it makes a lot of money, but it doesn't seem to be serving most people.
Yeah.
Whereas Chinese socialism with Chinese characteristics, which seems to be state capitalism, is actually delivering for the masses of its people. With these technologies and things, it looks to me like with this rising power, I mean, you're not going to stop, you're not going to stop 1 billion people. That we need to set aside a lot of these silly differences and in favor of being able to cooperate with them, even if it might mean some secrets moving here or there, because what's a secret in today's world, so that we can all grow. We can become a part of that Chinese growth instead of separate from it.
Oh, China's aligning with Putin here, I just see.
Well, yeah, what's their choice?
Bigger vision is right, instead of
So-
weakening fuel standards, get on the electrical car
Win the future.
bandwagon and move
Yeah.
forward.
Win the future.
Instead of some last ditch backwards move
Yeah,
forward.
last
Yeah,
gas.
we're falling
I get-
behind.
I know, but
China and
that's-
Germany,
I get-
these other countries
Yeah.
are moving forward on clean, green energy. And
Right.
we're-
Chinese are experimenting
And,
with highways that'll
Trucks
regenerate
want
electric
car
cars.
on
And we want
public
coal.
land. We need to get that black gold.
You know, these other places moving, big places moving forward too, you know, in India, Brazil, they're all gonna leave us behind if we,
Well, India
we think
has
we
got
can go
some
back to
really
the 30
dirty
days.
You've got to have an industrial policy. I mean, this is the key. You've got to say, and this is what I'll do as president, we'll have a meeting within the first few weeks of like, okay, here's the electric vehicle market. Bring in Department of Energy, bring in the Department of Transportation, bring in venture capital, bring in the emerging electric vehicle companies, bring in the big three, and say, okay, how do we do this? What's the tax code need to look like? What are the investments we have to make from the governmental side? What do state and locals have to do? Like, how do we dominate this market in the next 10 years? How do we have 50% of this market? And you set that, and the president just drives it. I'll just drive that agenda.
Yeah.
Then we do solar. You figure out, okay, here's solar. Bring in the solar companies, bring in the Department of Energy, bring in venture capital, and then drive that. And then how do you steer that growth to the older towns that have been left behind? Old coal, old steel, old auto, old rubber, communities of color that have been left behind. How do we get this growth to go into those areas using the tax code, using opportunity zones, using incentives, so that we can have distributed growth throughout the country, so that factories and supply chain, that everybody gets a little piece of the action, like it was in the older economy, but it'll be the updated version of this whole thing. To me, that's how you do it. And you gotta want to. Like, we can do what we want. We just gotta want to. Like, right now, nobody wants to.
Well, you know, Tim, I think we're getting fought against by the Kochs and these other big oil people. They're fighting us hard on
Yeah.
on clean energy. They're going to have stranded assets. You know, the refineries, every gas station is going to be a stranded asset. And the rhetoric and we're up against a whole party and a whole channel of Fox News. I mean, you know, we have to take on our own people.
Yeah.
But that's a nice program you're talking about to advance that. And, well, it's kind of like the Chinese way. Like, they're the state capitalism. Identify 2 or 3 areas that we are going. What do we need to get 50%?
Right.
And do it.
Right.
And do it. And that's going to take some state intervention.
Yeah.
And through policies, regulations, or whatnot. But I think that can be sold in a way that even the Fox News, business news would have to accept as makes sense.
Well, I know some people that watch Fox News, and the only thing they want to do is own liberals.
Tim, you're in Iowa.
Yes, I
You
am.
talk a lot about manufacturing, but manufacturing doesn't drive the horse in Iowa. Agriculture does. The tariffs are killing us.
Yeah.
I raise soybeans. My contract now, I mean, it takes me about $6, $7 to raise them. Price is about $7. Corn's the same way. Down 20 cents in the future. July futures are down 20. October, another 25 cents. It's costing us more to grow the corn than we could sell it for. Trump's tariffs are killing us. Killing us. I don't understand why a single Iowa farmer would vote. I really don't.
That's my question.
But we talk about women. Iowa farmers, I want to make sure I'm not recording everything, you know, they just don't always vote their pocketbook. Because if they did, there's no way.
There are lots of people who don't.
No way they
don't
could support, he is
understand
killing
their own
us.
Well, as long as the taxpayers pay
He
them,
is killing us.
as long as taxpayers pay them.
So I don't know where you're at on tariffs, but you gotta make a statement on that in Iowa.
Yeah.
Because it's killing us.
Even the Republicans don't like the tariff.
Well, they're not supposed to, but.
But I mean, I'm with you on manufacturing. I'm totally, I think you're right on.
Check for me.
In Iowa, you gotta talk tariffs too,
Yeah.
or something about agriculture, because it's just pulling the rug out from under.
Yeah,
And that's a lot of votes.
yeah,
And here's an Iowa farmer's vote.
yeah.
I
And
mean-
how many of them are Democrats, do you think? You, just you?
Way less than half. But hey, they voted for Obama,
Yeah.
because he had a bid.
What was his vision?
A different way of government. His vision was, and I'm a Hillary Clinton person, but
Yeah.
I wasn't, but Barack, you know, he sold us on bringing us together, a different way of politics. A little bit what you're talking about, kind of what you're talking about, bringing the people in, let's do it to make it better. Let's do it a different way, let's not fight, let's do it. And that's what you need to bring.
And
Did
he
he win
had,
Iowa the first time, in '08? Did he
yes,
win?
he
Yeah.
did.
Hey, did you?
Yes, it was
Yeah,
very
he was
close.
the first to win
Yeah,
the
yeah, he
caucus,
did.
and that's,
No, but I mean the general. Did
No, he won the general, he won
Yeah.
Iowa.
Yeah.
He won the
Won
general
Iowa twice.
too.
He won Iowa twice, yeah.
He won Iowa twice.
Twice.
But he was from Illinois, and so he had, even though it was Chicago, but he had a lot of credibility with the agricultural,
But you gotta talk a little agriculture.
you know. Yeah, that, I mean, that's one thing he was able to sell here, was
Yeah.
his
Well, I mean,
credibility.
he's a city
being a
man.
farmer.
But I think, and I wanted to bring this up, Trump's primary appeal is racism, I don't think there's any question. And he's used Obama's race to build this racist strength that he's got. Well, we are a very white state, and yet Obama came in here and won it twice. But,
Because we believed it.
yeah.
You feel toward better angels.
Correct.
Or
I
management.
think Iowa.
But that's what you're talking about doing too,
Yeah.
bringing these people together.
Yeah.
Obama excited people, and this is more Candace than here as far as who we wanted to candidate. Obama excited people. Trump excited people, not me. but-
Charisma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And so I think we're looking, we know most of the Democrats are going to have the same policies.
Yeah.
Who is going to energize the voters? Who is going to excite people the way that Obama did? And the way that Bill Clinton did.
Yeah. I think,
And Hillary did
I'm
not.
obviously biased, but I think what I'm talking about is exciting. I mean, I think this is about winning the future. It's about the most progressive things around the economy, around education, around agriculture, around food, around health, things that are happening around the country that are actually successful. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel, it's just like we're scaling up what the successes are around the United States. And I think the laboratories of democracy and the ideas that are out there, they're working. And the problem is the federal government's broke. So in New Deal style, you take these things and you scale them. The federal government needs to be a partner in local communities. We've gotten pinned into a corner. They've done two things to us. They've divided us. White, black, brown, gay, straight, north, south, urban, rural. Like how many different union, not union, you know? I mean, how many different ways can we divide everybody in the United States? And it's worked. Because the New Deal coalition that was agriculture, rural, immigrants, urban, African Americans, like that was the coalition, and then for 30 years or plus, we were like moving an agenda that actually helped everybody, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, you know, I mean, legal aid, I mean, roads and bridges and investments. That, to me, is like, what's exciting is that we can actually put this coalition back together. And what I've been saying is like, with the monopoly in agriculture, like rural people, like, you can't do it on your own, there's not enough. You look at working-class white people and black people in my district, like, we don't have enough clout to like flip what globalization has done or somehow bring some humanity to that system alone. African Americans, not that this is their only issue, but they're not gonna change the criminal justice system just with themselves. And, you know, Latinos are not gonna change the immigration system by themselves. The only way we fix this thing is we all come together and like, look, we're all getting screwed, okay? That's what's happening. It's not good in Youngstown, it's not good in rural Iowa, it's not good for immigrants, you know, on and on, African Americans in the criminal justice system. How do we all come together and say, look, here's the new agenda for America, here's America 2.0, and let's go, let's win the future. It's doable. I mean, to me, that's the exciting part, it is doable, it's already happening, you just need to get the federal government out of the way and be a partner. I mean, you look at what happens in towns, like the federal government can be a force for good. It can do some really good things, but it's not, because they defunded it, and they had everybody talking about how bad the government is, and it doesn't work, and it's broken, and they defund it, and it doesn't work, and they say, look, it doesn't work. It's like, yeah, you defunded the whole damn thing, and now it's, I'm not swearing.
Antipathy
I was at an event yesterday, and I was doing the house party, and I swore. I'm from Youngstown, so, you know, it comes with the program. And the mother of this, there was a little kid there, he was like, I don't know, 10, 12 years old. I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. She goes, in our house, you have to give $1 if you swear. So I said, I'll just give the kid a 10, and I'll be good for the rest of the night.
Pay it forward.
Keep the change.
It still runs so high. Well, I mean, not just now, historically, you are trying to run for president as a sitting member of Congress.
Yeah.
We've elected sitting members of Congress to the presidency 4 times in our history.
It's going to be so good, isn't it?
The last one was
why
a
you
good
want
one.
to run.
Gonna give you a
Because
job,
only
Ken?
one of those 4 managed to live through his first
A lot of
term.
great
Yeah.
candidates.
That was Ron Obama.
Well, he didn't run straight from the House.
He was running, a sitting member of Congress.
Oh, of Congress.
Only
Yeah.
one from the House has ever won.
And he was a damn good one. It was too bad that he died.
Who was that?
Garfield.
Yeah.
He was.
Where was he from?
He was
Ohio.
Ohio, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
I'm giving you an opportunity
He's
to
the only
get in
member of
early.
the House.
How's your health?
He's the only member of the House ever to win the presidency.
And he was a good one.
And even though lots and lots of senators run,
Probably
Hey,
had
what's
the
up
most
with Jim
beautiful first
Jordan,
lady.
your buddy there from
Oh,
Ohio?
It's a tragedy.
so we don't see
What's
them
happening
like.
about you?
voters
Yeah,
don't see
we're
them
like-
vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like this. This is me and this is him.
Yeah. Good stuff.
A lot of this business with Iowa and racism is really our job as Iowans to remind our fellow people what Iowa's culture is and has been legally, morally, culturally, on the cutting edge of the abolitionist movement
That is
and
correct, Pat.
civil rights
It is.
movement, the integration of racial integration into schools, into voting. Iowa was so far ahead of the rest of the, and that's really not, we don't expect people from other states to come here. And that's something we need to do with our fellow Iowans, is to call them to understand our own cultural history. And that will do a lot of good to help people like you know, who, when we're losing our own sense of ourselves, to fall for a racist. Well, no, I won't, how many jars, I don't know. But, yeah, I don't have enough money.
I'll
But-
start talking about it.
Yeah, but,
I mean, when you started with vagina, I mean, it was all downhill from there. A swear word is really not gonna bother you.
Pat's a baseball fan.
This is an
Good thing you talk football.
this is an English-only state supposedly, but I will use Latin instead of the native English word, the one-syllable word, which has its own history, so I just use the Latin to
Gotcha,
be as good as I can.
gotcha.
So, when Trump ran for president, he inspired a lot of people over immigration. And then a week goes by, when I turn on the TV, that it's not front and center. I'm really disappointed with Republicans and Democrats, because I feel like since that campaign started, we've talked about a wall or no wall, and we haven't talked about doing away with long-term immigration applications, and we haven't steered away from like an instant access over terminal. When you talk about America 2.0, what does it look like to where people are encouraged to come here, and they're excited to come here, and they know we want them here, and it's not going to take them forever to get here. And for the people that need to get here fast, what resources do we provide to them to where they're encouraged to do it? I know a really good father that's here illegally, and he's a phenomenal father of 3 kids, but he's living a lie, and I think he deserves better than that. And we have been so focused on the polarizing issues of a wall or no wall that it feels like we've made no progress.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a waste of time, and we're mad about that time.
Yeah.
What do you do to solve maybe the smaller problems that nobody's addressing?
So, let's unpack that a little bit, starting with security. I think you've got to have, as a party, as a candidate, as president, you've got to have an agenda that protects the border and protects who's coming in and out of the country. I don't think there's any question about that, and I think most Americans are in agreement. The reality of it is you're not going to put a wall in the middle of the Rio Grande River. That doesn't even make any sense. So what's the plan? And I think there are technologies we can use, and where you need to put barriers, which I voted for in the past, and putting walls in certain areas to help with, making that happen. I think that's appropriate. 90%. So we have an opiate problem in Ohio. It's been something we've been dealing with. I know there's a methamphetamine issue in Iowa. I'm not sure where it's coming from. But the opiate stuff and the heroin's coming from Mexico. 90% of it comes in through the ports of entry. So the focus should be on the ports of entry, and the ports comes in through the water. Fentanyl, which is laced into the heroin, which is about, I think it's like, I don't know how many times stronger than the heroin, but that's what gets laced into the heroin that kills people. That comes in primarily through some of the shipping in Florida, but also through the United States Postal Service, which is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. So you've got to really figure out where it's coming from in order to stop it somewhere else. And you've got to fund those agencies, God bless you, to fund those agencies to be able to really figure that out and have manpower in order to be able to do that. So you got to secure the border. Having said that, you can still have a compassionate immigration program that is both willing to accept and process people who are coming here from a war-torn country or a country run by gangs like in Central America, and process people in a way and vet them in a way, especially mothers and children, and put them in safe facilities to be able to do that. I think that makes a ton of sense. And then I would be supportive of what passed the Senate a few years ago, the comprehensive immigration reform. Pull these people out of the shadows, get them on a pathway to citizenship, and they may have to pay a fine and pay some back taxes and whatever, but get them in the process over 5, 6, 7 years to come out of the shadows and be into the country. And then they're paying into the system, and so that's actually going to support some of the long-term programs of Medicare and Social Security and these other things. That's all doable. And we're also losing people in a lot of our universities. They come in, they get a PhD, or they're on the way to get a PhD. We had companies in Pittsburgh, for example, actually starting companies that are going to start hiring a lot of people. And they get their PhD, and now they have to go back to some other country. In fact, it's the flex screen on the, Jordan, what's it called? The phone, the flex screen of the...
It's the Samsung phone that
the
folds in half.
The Samsung phone, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it folds in half. They call it a flex screen. So evidently, the person who invented this was getting his PhD, or he was here in the country, and this was his idea, and he wanted to do it in the United States, but he couldn't stay. He sent him back to China. Now it's $1 billion company. And that's what's happening economically in the United States because of this foolishness that's happening here. So the last piece is go to the heart of the matter. So when you hear me talk about education, it's like go to the trauma, right? The heart of the matter. When you hear us talk about healthcare, it's like go to the heart of the matter. It's food that we're eating. It's the stress levels that we have that we can actually reverse sickness. Like go to the fundamental, go to the foundation of the problem. Same with talking about agriculture. It's about the soil. Like how do we rebuild the soil? Go to the heart of the matter. So in the immigration piece, we've got to be involved in Central America. Like this is where the problem is. These people are coming from a country where gangs are running the country. They knock on doors and they say, okay, you're the little girl, you go into the sex trade. You're the boy, you go to the gang. And if you don't, you get killed. So of course, parents, any parent would grab their kid and get the hell out of there. And maybe pay somebody to take their kid. I mean, just think, like, the president makes this so obscure. It's like, to me, it's pretty clear. Obviously, the situation must be so bad in that country, that a parent would decide to give somebody a few $100s to take their kid and run to the United States, or run themselves with their kid. I mean, who does that unless the situation they're leaving is worse? So we need to go in there and secure some of these countries. We don't even have an ambassador in Honduras. I mean, the president is so disconnected from what's happening there. We don't even have an ambassador. We should be in there with some security, which we could have a regional force. I'm not saying we invade the place, but there's gangs running them, and we should go in there and provide some level of security. We should go in there with the State Department, United States AID. How do we start building, securing, and building the country up a little bit? It doesn't need to look like, you know, the Palisades in Los Angeles, but it needs to be secure so people aren't coming to our border. So any money we would spend would be a lot less than if we're dealing with what we're dealing with now. And so the president's got to play offense on that.
Did the Trump administration just cut funding?
We're talking about cutting funding, yeah. And I think in the budget they submitted for the State Department, they did cut it.
Now you're in the Congress, now you're the keeper of the purse or whatever they call it. Now, his budget is pretty bad for working people, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
big cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, and
Yeah,
even Social Security.
yeah, huge cuts.
It's really scary.
Huge cuts. And, you know, fortunately, the House, we fixed a lot
You
of
can
that.
tell a lot about an administration just by the budget they put forward.
That's a values document.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
And there's going to be next year, I think either next year or the following year, we're going to be about $1 trillion every year in deficit spending. $1 trillion a year, not the accumulated debt, the annual
That's
deficit.
not sustainable, I mean.
No, it's totally not. Totally not.
I mean, we're pretty much bankrupt, I mean, 23 trillion right now, or
We've got
close to
some
it.
borrowing capacity as a country, but do you really want, I mean,
That's-
you look at it, like, we're not asking, when was the last time we asked the wealthiest people in this country to make any sacrifice at all? Can you remember? 2 wars, financial crisis, largest income inequality we've had since the Great Depression. We're falling behind with our schools, falling behind in the economy, infrastructure's falling behind. We don't ask anybody to help out. It's like, it's not that we hate you, it's that we have all of these issues. Now, I think we have a responsibility as Democrats to say, we're not asking you for money to throw into these broken systems. That's why I think we need to reform education, push social emotional learning, kind of things I was talking about. We don't want you to dump it into a broken healthcare system. Let's focus on keeping healthy, incentives, moving towards reversing diabetes and these other things that are good investments. So you can go to the rich people and say, look, we're asking for money, but we're also fixing these systems. So you hear from rich people all the time, yeah, I don't throw money, it's the government's not working. It's like, we're gonna get this government working and we're gonna ask you.
And you know, Tim, there's some large corporations that don't even pay taxes.
I know,
Amazon,
yeah.
General Electric,
Yeah,
even my old employer, Miller Coors, didn't pay any taxes.
yeah.
Trump.
Yeah, one fifth of the
They,
Fortune 500 don't
they're
pay
using
anything.
our infrastructure for roads, our military for protection, I mean, all this, but they don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got to figure out a way to move from taxing labor to taxing capital and capital gains.
And that's exactly the opposite of the way the Republicans want to move, drop the capital gains tax, which never made any
Yeah.
sense to me. I mean, indexing when somebody sells their house, that's one thing. but-
Yeah, and we should look into transaction tax. You can generate a lot of money through 1/10 of 1 penny transaction tax on every transaction that's made in the stock
Oh, yeah, didn't Bernie, about that?
Bernie may have something along those lines.
Yeah, and then Liz Warren had a wealth tax of 2 cents on every dollar over 50 million. She said it would pay for all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
no, it generates a lot of money. I mean, we've got to do it. I mean, it's like, look at what's happening in the country right now.
And she said, we already have a
We
wealth
have got
tax.
to win the Senate back.
Oh,
We
definitely.
have got to win the Senate back.
Please.
Well, and if we
We
can't
do-
do it
we have
this
to get
time,
rid of
when
Mitch
most of the
McConnell.
seats that are in play are Republican,
Yeah.
we can do it.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
I thought it was
Be
a
hard.
big dream to do it last time because
Yeah.
most of the seats were in
Yeah.
This is our opportunity.
But this is when it has to happen.
yeah.
You know, Mitch McConnell, he doesn't even bring things to the floor that he should. I mean, you're talking about a vote in Congress, you know, you can vote 435 to 0, and
Yeah.
McConnell will never take it to the floor.
Yeah.
Should we waste,
I'm not perfect.
should we waste our time on impeachment? Or should we just try to vote him out? Were you out on that? You're in the House.
Yeah, you know what?
Dead in the Senate, what do you think? This is gonna have to be our last question.
Okay. I was saying, we gotta wait, let's hear from Mueller, you know, let's have the hearings. But I tell you, after last week, I was like, we've gotta do this. I just don't, I mean, if it was an auto worker in Youngstown or a farmer in Iowa, you'd be getting prosecuted right now.
Correct.
It's a criminal act, 5 or 6 of them.
You got 2 lawyers in here,
Yeah.
and if we file false documents,
Well, it's pretty much your oath of office, and if you're asking to be the president, we expect you to
You're right.
live up to the oath of, I mean, this is beyond politics.
Well, yeah,
This is a
it's up to
constitutional
the Constitution.
Tim, you were right where I was. I was just like, no, and then you get that, and then you think,
Yeah.
how can you?
The argument
How
I've
do you
seen
not?
recently,
Yeah.
and we still.
Your view got a vote, so we don't.
Yeah, I
we know how
mean,
you
as
vote.
I've been saying, I'm like, I'm not happy about this. Like, I'm not, there's not, take no joy in impeaching a president. This is like the worst thing ever to have to do. But he's not a king.
he asked
The Senate will
McGann,
not
to
convict,
file
No.
full.
We still need to, you know, have the procedure to expose everything.
Yeah, I think everyone needs to say, if this was you, or me, or anybody here, you would be getting charged with at least 6 counts of obstruction of justice. At least 6, maybe more, and maybe other crimes. That's just the way it would happen. And I think if we put it in layman's terms like that, I think people are gonna go, yeah, I
Well,
mean,
it's-
hey, if you did that, someone says,
blatant
well, Trump, if
power.
you did it, you'd be in jail.
It's blatant abuse of power. You see it every day in his tweets. Abuse of power.
Yeah, and divide.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Shame people.
And he's not always truthful.
That's a very polite way of saying it.
Yeah, he,
Article 1 power of tariff, he's abusing that. He's
Yeah,
abusing
yeah.
the leeway you've given him there. I think that's pretty.
well, I think we all can agree that Trump is hurting this country. I mean, just getting around his base and getting somebody in there good again, you know.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I am very stressed out. You talk about stress. I'm stressed out from the administration.
Yeah. Someone in Iowa called it PTS, post-Trump syndrome. The same kind of thing. So I gotta run. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming. I know you're Iowans, so you have commitment issues with presidential candidates. You have to meet somebody 30 or 40 times before you can, correct? All right, at least 30.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, of course I can.
Do we have time for a couple of pictures?
Yeah. But I'd appreciate any help.
I wish you the best of luck,
Thank you.
sir.
TimRyanForAmerica.com. You can go to my website. We've got videos and position papers. It looks almost certain we're going to be on the debate stage in a couple of weeks.
Great.
Which is good. And our polling numbers are going really well. And we're getting a good response. So we'd love to have anybody's help who doesn't have a commitment issue. Yeah, I know you have commitment issues. I can just tell.
Me?
But that's not the worst of it. It could be worse.
To be honest, and I probably shouldn't be here, I'm a member of the DSA, and I know they associate with Democrats a lot, but I'll probably follow the DSA's, the Democratic Socialists of America.
Gotcha.
You know, I just cast my ballots for
Just
my
don't vote that way in
representative.
the general.
No, he was right.
So I probably shouldn't. But they.
Hey,
they
all are
want-
welcome.
Yeah.
We're a Big Ten.
I really liked your video on the food.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
what
appreciate that.
I wanted to.
Thank you.
We're gonna be able to
Yeah.
get some.
Yeah, we can sign, you want me to sign these too?
Yeah.
I think we're
All of them,
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Pat,
Those barns.
You're always welcome. Ken's welcome.